The warning bells had stopped ringing 3 hours ago. Now, Station Nexus 7 waited in tense silence as 5 black ships floated outside the docking bay doors. The ships were sleek and smooth, like drops of oil against the starfield. No one had ever seen anything like them. Council Speaker Vorthland stood in the main greeting hall, his crystal body shimmering with nervous energy. For over 300 years, he had welcomed new species to the galactic community. It was always the same. Scientists came first, then diplomats, then traders. Everyone followed the ancient rules of first contact. But these humans were different. "Sir," called his assistant, a small blue creature named Pip. "The ships are requesting permission to dock." "Granted," Vorthland replied. His voice echoed strangely in the vast hall. "And make sure the greeting ceremony is perfect. We want to make a good first impression." The ceremony had taken weeks to prepare. There were flowers from 12 different worlds, crystals that sang when touched, and gifts representing the best of galactic culture. Representatives from 50 species waited in the hall, all dressed in their finest clothes. Everyone was excited to meet Earth's first ambassadors. The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss. For a moment, nothing happened. Then footsteps echoed through the metal corridors, slow, steady, and somehow threatening. The sound made many aliens step backward without knowing why. The first human to enter the hall was tall and thin. He wore a black suit that seemed to drink in the light around it. His shoes made sharp clicking sounds on the floor. Behind him came others, all dressed the same way, all moving with the same careful precision. Their leader stopped in the center of the hall. He was a man with dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to look right through everything. His name tag read Kong, Hey on Earth representative. Behind him stood a woman with short hair and a face like carved stone. Her tag said, Park Una, Strategic Analysis. Vorthland stepped forward, his prepared speech ready. "Welcome, friends from Earth. We are honored to. Where is your leader?" Kong Haon interrupted. His voice was quiet, but somehow filled the entire hall. Several aliens flinched at the sound. I am the council speaker," Vorthland stammered. "I represent all species in this sector." Haon looked at him for a long moment. Then he turned his head slightly, and 2 more humans moved into position behind him. One was a young man with sharp eyes who immediately began studying the rooms. Exits. His name was Li Jun. The other was a woman with a small device in her hand that beeped softly as she pointed it around the hall. Her name was Kim Nari. "This station processes how much cargo per cycle?" the woman asked suddenly. Vorthland blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, what does that have to do with answer the question?" Park Una said. Her voice was even quieter than Haon's, but it made the crystal being's entire body vibrate with fear. "Approximately 12 million tons per standard cycle," Vorthland replied without thinking. Then he shook himself. "But please, we have prepared a wonderful ceremony to welcome you to our community. We have gifts, and we don't want gifts," Hyun said. He began walking around the hall, his eyes never stopping their movement. "We want information." The alien representatives watched in growing alarm as more humans entered the hall. They spread out like hunters, each one taking a different position. None of them looked at the beautiful gifts or the welcoming banners. Instead, they studied the people, the exits, the security systems. A small creature from the Centauri system tried to approach one of the humans with a friendship crystal. The human, a man named Choi Dae, looked down at the alien with such intensity that the little being dropped the crystal and ran away. "This is not how first contact works," whispered an elderly diplomat from the Vega colonies. "Where are their scientists? Where are their cultural experts?" "I don't think they brought any," replied his companion, a insect-like being whose antennae were twitching nervously. Keon had finished his circuit of the hall. He returned to the center and looked directly at Vorthland. "Your trading routes are inefficient," he said matter-of-factly. "Your cargo processing systems are outdated. Your security protocols have 17 major flaws." "How could you possibly know?" Vorthland began. "We've been watching," Park Una said. She held up a small tablet that showed detailed blueprints of the station, Your people sent signals to our system for years, begging us to join your community. So we studied you. The humans had formed a loose circle around the alien representatives. It didn't look threatening, but somehow everyone felt trapped. These weren't diplomats or scientists. These were predators in expensive clothes. A brave representative from the Andromedan Republic stepped forward. He was a tall, peaceful being with 4 arms and silver skin. "We welcome you to our galaxy," he said in his species' traditional greeting. "May your people find harmony, and your planet imports 70% of its food." Interrupted a human woman named Song Hannah. "Your population will outgrow your food supply in 8 cycles. The Andromedan stared at her. "How do you know our population statistics?" "We know everything," Hayon said simply. "We know which systems are profitable and which ones are failing. We know which species are growing and which ones are dying out. We know which trade routes make money and which ones lose it." The hall had become completely silent. 50 species from across the galaxy stood frozen as the terrible truth began to dawn on them. These weren't emissaries coming to learn about galactic culture. These were analysts who had already learned everything they needed to know. "This is unacceptable," Vorthlan said, trying to sound official. "First contact requires proper protocols. You cannot simply—" "We followed your protocols," Park Yuna said. She produced a thick folder of documents. Every form filled out correctly. Every requirement met. "We have legal authority to establish trade relations with any willing species." Trade relations. Several aliens asked at once. "Why else would we come?" Hyun asked. His smile was perfectly polite and absolutely terrifying. "We're here to do business." The humans began moving toward the exits, their mission clearly complete. They had assessed the station, evaluated its weaknesses, and identified its opportunities. The welcoming ceremony with all its gifts and speeches meant nothing to them. As they left, Li Jun paused at the door. He looked back at the crowd of confused aliens and said something that would haunt the galaxy for years to come. This was just the evaluation. The real team arrives tomorrow. The doors closed behind them with a soft hiss, leaving 50 species standing in stunned silence among their unwanted gifts. Outside the windows, the 5 black ships remained motionless, waiting. For the first time in galactic history, no one knew what to do next. The next morning, Station Nexus 7 woke up to find that everything had changed overnight. Where there had been empty cargo bays 12 hours ago, now stood gleaming white structures that hummed with activity. Human workers in identical gray uniforms moved between the buildings like ants, carrying equipment and setting up machines that no alien had ever seen before. Council Speaker Vortlan rushed to his office window and stared in shock. "How is this possible?" he whispered to himself. "They only arrived yesterday." His assistant Pip burst through the door, panic making his blue skin turn purple. Sir, they've taken over Cargo Bay 7 through 15. "What do you mean taken over?" Vorthlan demanded. "They filed permits, legal documents, rental agreements." Pip waved a stack of papers in the air. "All signed and approved through the automated system last night. Everything is legal." Vorthlan grabbed the papers and read them quickly. His crystal body began to dim with worry. Every document was perfect. Every law followed exactly. The humans had somehow navigated the galaxy's complex legal system in a single night and claimed massive sections of the station. "Get me Security Chief Morvac," he ordered. But Security Chief Morvac was already dealing with his own problems. The large 4-armed warrior stood outside Cargo Bay 7, staring at a human woman who blocked his path. She was small compared to him, but something about her made him hesitate to move forward. "Ma'am, I need to inspect what you're building," Morvac said in his deep voice. The woman looked up from her tablet. Her name tag read Song Hannah, Operations Director. She smiled. "Politely, of course. Chief, here's your inspection permit." Morvac took the paper and read it. Then read it again. "This says I can only inspect between the hours of 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. on alternate Tuesdays." "That's correct," Song Hannah said, still smiling. "Standard regulations." Section 47B. We followed all the rules. But that means I can't inspect for another 3 weeks. I'm sorry about the inconvenience, she replied. Then she turned back to her tablet and ignored him completely. All around the station, similar scenes were playing out. Human teams had appeared everywhere, each one led by someone who seemed to know exactly what they were doing. In the main trading hall, a man named Choi Day had set up a small desk with a computer and a sign that read Earth Trade Solutions better, faster, cheaper. A line of alien merchants stretched around the corner, all waiting to talk to him. I don't understand, said Glurk, a green-skinned trader from the Outer Rim. My cargo route has been profitable for 200 years. Why do I need to change? Anything. Choi Day turned his computer screen around. It showed a 3D map of Glurk's usual trade route, a winding path between 6 different star systems. You're spending 63 days and 940,000 credits to move goods that could be delivered in 41 days for 670,000 credits. Glurk's large eyes bulged. How do you know my route costs? We know everyone's costs, Choi Day said calmly. We also know how to fix them. Sign this contract, and we'll cut your expenses by 30%. What's the catch? No catch. We take 15% of your savings as our fee. Glurk stared at the contract. The math was simple. He would still save 15% overall, which meant more profit than he'd made in decades. But something felt wrong about it. What happens to my regular stops? I have friends at those stations. Friends don't pay bills, Choi Day replied. Efficiency does. While Glurk struggled with his decision, other merchants in line were already pulling out their signature devices. Word was spreading fast. The humans could make anyone rich, but only if they were willing to change everything about how they did business. On the station's upper levels, an emergency meeting was taking place. Representatives from 20 different species had gathered in Conference Room Alpha, their voices rising in panic and confusion. They're not just trading, cried Ambassador Felix from the Spiral Arm Consortium. They're changing everything. My homeworld's shipping company lost 30 clients overnight. Added Representative Vorth from the Inner Systems Alliance. All of them signed with Earth Trade Solutions instead. Council Speaker Vorthland tried to maintain order. Please, everyone, let's stay calm. They're just one species that's destroying our entire economy. Interrupted Captain Brix, a veteran trader whose family had run cargo routes for generations. My grandfather's shipping lane has been in our family for 800 years. Now these humans say it's inefficient and want to reroute everything. In the corner of the room sat a quiet figure that most of the others hadn't noticed. Her name was Omina, and her business card simply said Information Specialist. She had been listening to everything with great interest, occasionally making notes on a small device. Excuse me, she said politely. May I ask a question? The room fell silent. There was something about her tone that made everyone pay attention. You're all upset because we're offering better services than you can provide, she continued. But isn't that how business is supposed to work? The best service wins. This isn't just business, Captain Brix shouted. This is our way of life, our cultures, our traditions. Traditions don't feed families. Oh, Mina replied, profit does. She stood up and walked to the center of the room. Look around this station. Half the equipment is outdated. Your cargo processing takes 3 times longer than it should. Your security systems have holes big enough to fly a ship through. Your trade routes were designed centuries ago and never updated. So several voices asked, so you're all losing money every single day and you don't even know it. She activated a small projector that filled the room with numbers and charts. This station could be twice as profitable with simple changes. Your shipping companies could cut costs in half. Your planets could increase trade by 200%. The aliens stared at the projections in stunned silence. The numbers were clear and undeniable, but this is how we've always done things, whispered Ambassador Felix. And how's that working for you? Oh, Mina asked. Down in the cargo bays, more humans were arriving every hour. Ships landed constantly, unloading people and equipment. Each new arrival seemed to have a specific job and specific knowledge. A woman named Kim Nari had set up an office, labeled Efficiency Consulting. She met with station managers and showed them ways to improve their operations that they had never imagined. A man named Lee Jun ran something called Security Assessment Services. He pointed out flaws in the station's defenses that made veteran security officers feel like amateurs. Another man, Bae Kyung, offered negotiation training and taught alien diplomats tactics that had been developed in Earth's corporate boardrooms. By evening, the transformation was visible everywhere. Human signs had appeared in multiple languages. Human officers occupied prime locations. Human workers had integrated themselves into every major operation on the station. And the most disturbing part was that it was all completely legal. Vorthland stood in his office as the day ended, watching human ships continue to arrive through his window. Each one brought more specialists, more equipment, more changes. Sir Pip said, quietly behind him, "The humans are requesting a meeting with you. About what they want to discuss purchasing the station." Vorthland's crystal body went completely dark. In less than 24 hours, the humans had gone from visitors to potential owners. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that I'll meet with them tomorrow." But deep down, he already knew it was too late. The predators had arrived, and they were hungry. For more than just trade routes, they wanted everything. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived, and the galaxy was no longer the same place. Station Nexus 7 now looked like a completely different world. The old, slow cargo systems had been replaced with gleaming human machines that could process twice as much freight in half the time. Ships that used to wait days for loading now finished in hours. The station's profits had tripled, but the cost was becoming clear to everyone who worked there. "I don't recognize this place anymore," muttered Chief Engineer Claxon as he watched human technicians replace another piece of equipment. His people had maintained the station's systems for decades, but now they were being told their methods were outdated. In the main conference room, Council Speaker Vorthland faced his biggest challenge yet. Sitting across from him was Nam Jun-ho, a human who called himself a financial systems architect. Behind him stood 2 assistants with tablets full of charts and numbers. "Your proposal is impossible," Vorthland said, his crystal body flickering with stress. "You want to change how the entire galactic economy works." Nam Jun-ho smiled politely. "Not change, Council Speaker, improve." He activated a holographic display that filled the room. It showed the trade routes of 50 different star systems, with red lines marking inefficiencies and green lines showing proposed improvements. "Look at the Andromeda Shipping Consortium," Junho said, pointing to a cluster of red lines. "They've been using the same routes for 800 years. But stellar drift has changed the optimal paths. They're wasting 50% of their fuel." "Those routes are traditional," Vorthland protested. "They connect communities, maintain relationships." "They lose money," Junho interrupted. "And when businesses lose money, people suffer." The hologram zoomed in on a specific trade route. "The merchants on this path are going bankrupt. Their children can't afford education. Their planets are falling behind in technology. All because they're too attached to tradition to accept better ways." Vorthland stared at the display. The numbers were harsh but true. Many of the old trading families were struggling, and their worlds were indeed falling behind. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked reluctantly. "A galactic trade optimization network," Junho replied. "One central system that manages all shipping, all pricing, all logistics. Maximum efficiency, minimum waste. Controlled by humans. Controlled by the species best qualified to manage it." Before Vorthland could respond, his assistant Pip burst into the room. "Sir, emergency in Sector 12. The Regellian Trade Alliance is protesting." Through the station's windows, they could see a crowd of aliens gathered outside the human offices. They carried signs written in dozens of languages, all saying variations of the same thing: "Preserve our way of life, and stop human takeover." Leading the protest was Captain Brix, the veteran trader whose family had run cargo routes for generations. His 4 arms waved angrily as he shouted at the crowd. "They're destroying everything we built," he yelled. "Our fathers and grandfathers created these trade networks with their own sweat and blood. Now these humans want to replace it all with their cold machines and profit calculations." The crowd roared agreement. Merchants, pilots, station workers, everyone who felt threatened by the rapid changes, had joined the protest. But even as they protested, many of them couldn't deny the results they were seeing. Glirk. The green-skinned trader who had signed with Earth Trade Solutions was now making more profit than ever before in his life. His new route was faster, cheaper, and more reliable than his old one. His family back home was living better because of human efficiency, but he had lost something to the small stops along his old route, friendly stations where he knew everyone's name, where he shared meals and stories were no longer part of his journey. Business was better, but life felt emptier. Inside the human command center that had been built in Cargo Bay 7, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Jujin, Earth's legal specialist, stood before a wall of screens showing legal documents from across the galaxy. "Status report," he said to his team. 17-star. "Systems have filed complaints against our expansion," reported his assistant. "But all our activities remain within legal boundaries. The Vegan Alliance is threatening to ban human ships from their space," added another team member. Jujin nodded calmly. "Let them just route their competitors through more efficient paths and undercut their prices. They'll change their minds when they start losing customers." This was the human strategy: never break laws, but use them so effectively that resistance became economically impossible. On the other side of the station, Li Soyang had established what she called a planetary efficiency consulting service. Her office was packed with desperate government officials from worlds across the galaxy. "My planet is falling apart," pleaded Ambassador Thren from the Capella system. "Our cities are overcrowded, our resources are running out, and our people are unhappy." Li Soyang pulled up a detailed analysis of his world. "Your urban planning is based on a model that's 2,000 years old. Your resource distribution system has a 43% waste factor. Your transportation network is creating artificial shortages in 12 different regions." She turned her screen toward him. "We can fix all of this. How? Reorganize your cities using optimal density calculations. Implement dynamic resource allocation based on real-time need assessment. Replace your transportation system with an integrated logistics network." Ambassador Thren stared at the proposed changes. They would completely transform his world society. This would destroy our traditional neighborhoods, our local communities, our cultural centers. It would also house everyone properly, feed everyone adequately, and give everyone access to opportunities, Soyang replied. "What's more important, preserving the past or building a better future?" It was the same question being asked across the galaxy. And increasingly, people were choosing efficiency over tradition. The breakthrough came when the first planet officially requested full human management. New Harmony, a struggling agricultural world in the Outer Rim, had been facing crop failures and economic collapse. Their government, desperate for solutions, hired Yang Tai's planetary management solutions to take complete control of their economy. Within 6 months, New Harmony became the most productive agricultural world in its sector. Food production increased by 300%. Unemployment disappeared. The standard of living rose dramatically, but the planet's traditional farming communities were gone, replaced by massive automated agricultural complexes. The old farming families had been retrained as equipment operators and system monitors. They were wealthier and healthier than before, but they were no longer farmers in any way their ancestors would recognize. News of New Harmony's transformation spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Suddenly, dozens of other worlds were requesting human assistance. "They're not conquering us with weapons," observed Dr. Milax, a philosopher from the Academy of Galactic Studies. "They're conquering us with solutions to our problems. And the worst part is, their solutions actually work." Back on Station Nexus 7, the protest was breaking up. Many of the protesters had been offered jobs with human companies. Jobs that paid better than their old ones and came with benefits they had never imagined. Captain Bricks stood alone as his supporters drifted away. One by one, he had refused all human offers, determined to maintain his family's traditional shipping business, but he was running out of customers as more merchants switched to human services. "This isn't right," he said to anyone who would listen. "We're losing ourselves." But when he looked around, he saw aliens who were healthier, wealthier, and more prosperous than they had ever been under the old system. Their children were getting better education. Their worlds were becoming more efficient and productive. The humans had done something that no conqueror in galactic history had ever achieved. They had made their subjects grateful for being conquered. As the day ended, Vorthlin received a message that changed everything. The Galactic Council itself, the ancient governing body of 1,000 worlds, was requesting human consultants to help optimize their operations. The Predators had reached the very top of galactic civilization, and they were being invited in. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy had divided into 2 types of worlds: those that had embraced human efficiency, and those that were slowly dying without it. The difference was impossible to ignore. On Kepler Prime, a world that had hired human consultants, the capital city gleamed with new buildings and bustling commerce. The streets were clean, the people were well fed, and unemployment had dropped to almost zero. But the old marketplace where families had traded for generations was gone, replaced by an automated distribution center that could process goods 10 times faster. Meanwhile, on nearby Vega Secondary, which had refused human help, empty shops lined the streets. Young people were leaving in massive numbers to find work on human-managed worlds. The elderly watched their communities crumble, while stubbornly insisting that their traditional ways were better. Council Speaker Vorthlin stood in his office, staring at reports from across the galaxy. The numbers told a clear story. Worlds that worked with humans were thriving, while those that resisted were falling further behind every day. "Sir Pip," said softly, entering with another stack of documents, "3 more systems have requested emergency economic assistance. They want human management teams immediately." Vorthlin nodded grimly. "And how many protests this week?" 47 major demonstrations, Pip replied. "But sir, most of the protesters are asking for human help too. They're protesting that their governments aren't changing fast enough." This was the strangest part of the whole situation. The humans weren't forcing anyone to accept their help. In fact, they often had to turn away requests because they couldn't handle the demand. Entire civilizations were begging to be conquered by Earth's corporate efficiency. At the newly built Earth Education Center on Station Nexus 7, something even more dramatic was happening. Seo-hoon, a human education specialist, stood before a classroom full of young aliens from dozens of different species. "Today, we're going to learn about competitive analysis," she announced to the class. A small, furry creature from the Centauri system raised its hand. "Teacher, SEO, what does that mean?" "It means studying what others do well, then figuring out how to do it better," she explained. "For example, if your neighbor sells fruit and makes good money, you study why customers like his fruit. Then you grow better fruit and sell it for a lower price." An older alien student, a purple-skinned being whose species valued cooperation above all else, looked confused. "But wouldn't that hurt your neighbor's business?" "Maybe," Seo-hoon replied. "But it would give customers better fruit for less money. Isn't that good for everyone except your neighbor?" The class fell silent as they wrestled with this idea. Their cultures had taught them to avoid competition and maintain harmony. But the human teacher was suggesting that fighting against others could actually help society. "What if everyone cooperated instead?" asked the purple alien. "What if we all worked together to grow the best fruit possible? Then who would push you to keep improving?" Seo-hoon responded. "If everyone is guaranteed success no matter how hard they try, why would anyone try very hard at all?" These conversations were happening in human schools across the galaxy. A generation of young aliens was learning to think in ways that would have horrified their parents, but that were undeniably effective. The crisis came to a head when the Ancient Eternal Conclave finally agreed to meet with human representatives. The Eternals were the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been guiding galactic civilization for over 1,000,000 years, using wisdom and patience to solve conflicts and maintain peace. Their homeworld, Sanctuary, was a place of meditation and careful thought where decisions were made only after decades of consideration. Jung Yura, Earth's diplomatic specialist, arrived at Sanctuary with a small team. Unlike other human operations, this one was quiet and respectful. The humans had learned that the Eternals required a different approach. The meeting took place in the Hall of Infinite Patience, a vast chamber where the Eternal Council had made their careful decisions for millennia. The Eternals themselves were tall, graceful beings who moved like flowing water and spoke in whispers that somehow filled the entire room. "We have watched your species for many cycles," said the first Eternal, a being so old that its exact age was unknown. "Your methods trouble us deeply." Jung Yura bowed respectfully. "We understand your concerns, honored ones. We come seeking wisdom, not conflict. Yet everywhere you go, you create conflict," replied another Eternal. "Worlds that have known peace for centuries are now filled with competition and struggle." With respect, Jung Yura said carefully, "We also create prosperity and progress. The worlds that work with us have eliminated poverty, disease, and want." "At what cost?" asked the first Eternal. "We have watched entire cultures disappear in a single generation. Traditional ways of life that took millions of years to develop are being swept away like dust." Jung Yura activated a small device that projected images into the air. "May I show you something?" The images showed children from human-managed worlds. Alien youngsters who were healthier, better educated, and more capable than any generation before them. They were also more aggressive, more competitive, and more focused on individual success than their peaceful ancestors. "These children will live longer, accomplish more, and reach higher than their parents ever dreamed possible," Jung Yura explained. "But they will also be more like humans." The Eternals studied the images in silence for a long time. When they finally spoke, their words sent shockwaves through the galaxy. "We understand now," the first Eternal said. "You are not conquerors. In the traditional sense, you are evolution itself, change made manifest in physical form." "Evolution?" Jung Yura asked. "Every species in this galaxy has reached a plateau," another Eternal explained. "We became comfortable with our level of development and stopped growing. We chose peace and stability over progress and challenge." The first Eternal continued, "But your species never stopped evolving. Never stopped competing, never stopped pushing forward. Now, you have come to push us forward as well. Whether we want it or not," added a third Eternal sadly. Jung Yura nodded slowly. "Change is difficult, but stagnation is death." "Perhaps," the first Eternal replied. "But what you offer is not mere change. You offer the complete transformation of galactic civilization. Every species will either become more like humans, or they will become irrelevant." "That's not our intention," Jung Yura began. "But it is the inevitable result," the Eternal interrupted. "We do not blame you. A shark does not choose to be a predator, it simply is what it is. And you are predators of inefficiency, of waste, of comfortable stagnation." The meeting ended with a decision that surprised everyone. The Eternals, the oldest and wisest species in the galaxy, officially requested human assistance in modernizing their society. "If we must evolve or become extinct," the first Eternal announced, "then we choose evolution." But their final words carried a warning that would echo across the galaxy. "Just remember, young humans, that evolution is a blade that cuts both ways. In changing us, you may find that you too are being changed." As news of the Eternals' decision spread, the last major resistance to human expansion crumbled. If beings who had successfully guided the galaxy for 1,000,000 years believed that human methods were necessary, who was anyone else to argue? Ko Hyuk, who had established the first interstellar security company, received requests from governments across the galaxy They wanted human-trained forces to protect their newly efficient societies from the chaos that their own rapid changes were creating. Moon Ciaro, working directly with the Galactic Council, began restructuring the galaxy's government. Itself, ancient procedures that had taken years to complete were streamlined into processes that took days. Decisions that once required consensus from hundreds of species could now be made by small, efficient committees. The galaxy was becoming more productive, more efficient, and more prosperous than it had ever been. It was also becoming more human. Every day, and as the Eternals had warned, the humans were discovering that they too were changing. Living among so many different species, managing such a vast civilization, was transforming them into something they had never been before. The question was, would anyone recognize the galaxy when the transformation was complete? 1 year after the humans arrived, Council Speaker Vorthlin received the report that would change galactic history forever. The document, prepared by Kim Neris' analysis team, was simple and terrifying. It showed that every major civilization in the galaxy now depended on human systems to function. If Earth suddenly disappeared tomorrow, galactic society would collapse within weeks. How did this happen so fast? Vorthlin asked himself, as he read through the numbers. Trade routes, food distribution, communication networks, defense systems, everything now ran through human-managed infrastructure. But the more disturbing part was the second half of the report. It showed that the humans themselves were changing too. The original team that had arrived at Station Nexus 7 barely resembled the people they had been 12 months ago. Constant contact with hundreds of alien species had transformed them into something new, beings who thought on a galactic scale, who made decisions that affected billions of lives, who had evolved beyond their original human nature. Kong Hoon stood on the observation deck of the massive orbital station that had been built around Earth's moon. From here, he could see ships from 1,000 different worlds coming and going in perfect coordination. The logistics network he managed moved more cargo in a day than the old galactic system had moved in a year. But as he watched the endless stream of traffic, he realized he couldn't remember the last time he had set foot on Earth itself. The planet of his birth felt small and distant now, irrelevant to the vast civilization he helped control. Sir, Park Yuna's voice came through his communicator. The final planetary conversion is complete. Rigel 7 has officially adopted human management protocols. Hugh nodded, though she couldn't see him. Rigel 7 was the last holdout world, the final planet, to resist human efficiency. Now there were none left. Every inhabited world in the galaxy operated according to human principles. And the resistance movements, he asked. Disbanded or converted, Yuna replied. Even Captain Brix finally accepted a position with our shipping division. His family's traditional roots are now part of the Galactic Logistics Network. It was over. The transformation was complete. But victory felt strangely hollow. Hen looked at his reflection in the observation window and saw a stranger staring back. His eyes held knowledge of star systems and civilizations, but they had lost something essentially human in the process. On Station Nexus 7, the place where it all began, a very different conversation was taking place. Lee June sat across from a young alien who had just graduated from one of the human schools. The creature had purple skin and large golden eyes, and it spoke with the confidence of someone raised in the new galactic order. I want to establish my own company, the young alien announced. I've identified inefficiencies in the crystal mining operations on my homeworld. I can increase production by 40% while reducing costs by 20%. Lee June smiled. This alien was thinking exactly like a human would. That's excellent. But what about the traditional mining families? Your improvements will put many of them out of work. Then they'll need to find new jobs or learn new skills, the alien replied. Without hesitation, progress doesn't wait for people who refuse to adapt. The words sounded harsh coming from a species that had once valued harmony above all else. But they were undeniably logical, undeniably effective. Very well, Lee June said. I'll approve your business license. As the young alien left, Li Jun wondered if this was what success looked like. They had created a galaxy full of beings who thought like humans, acted like humans, and competed like humans. But were they still the diverse, unique civilizations they had once been? The answer came during the final meeting of the Galactic Council's Old Session. Representatives from every world gathered in the ancient council chamber for the last time. Tomorrow, the chamber would be replaced with a smaller, more efficient meeting space where decisions could be made quickly by expert committees. Rather than through lengthy debates between hundreds of species, Council Speaker Vorthlin, his crystal body now fitted with human-designed efficiency enhancements, called the session to order. Before we close this chapter of galactic history, he announced, we must vote on the final proposal. The humans have offered to take complete responsibility for managing galactic civilization. All species would maintain their independence, but major decisions would be handled by human administrative systems. The debate that followed was unlike any in the Council's million-year history. Instead of the careful, patient discussions of old, representatives argued with sharp logic and competitive analysis. They had learned to think like humans, and now they were acting like them too. The proposal makes economic sense, declared the representative from New Harmony. Human management has brought unprecedented prosperity to every world that has tried it. But at what cost? Asked one of the few remaining traditionalists. We're not the same species we were a year ago. Our children think like humans. Our governments act like human corporations. Our cultures are being replaced by human efficiency. And is that bad? Challenged another representative. Our children are healthier, smarter, and more capable than any generation before them. Our governments actually solve problems instead of debating them for decades. Our cultures are more productive and successful. The vote wasn't even close. By a margin of 847 to 23, the galaxy chose to officially place itself under human guidance. But the most important moment came after the vote. When the first Eternal requested one final private meeting with the human leadership. In a secure chamber deep within the council building, the ancient being faced Konghan Park Yuna and the other leaders of Earth's galactic operations. You have succeeded beyond your wildest dreams, the first Eternal said. Every species in the galaxy now thinks, acts, and competes like humans. You have remade the galaxy in your own image. Thank you, Heian replied, though something in the Eternal's tone suggested this wasn't entirely a compliment. But tell me, the Eternal continued, when you look in the mirror, do you still see humans looking back? The question hung in the air like a weapon. The human leaders exchanged glances, and in that moment, they all realized the truth. They had spent a year changing the galaxy, but the galaxy had changed them too. Managing billions of alien lives, thinking on scales beyond anything Earth had ever known, making decisions that affected entire civilizations, it had transformed them into something that was no longer quite human. Evolution, Park Yuna said, quietly, works both ways. The first Eternal nodded slowly. Indeed, you came to our galaxy as predators, and you succeeded in making us all more like you. But in doing so, you became more like us, beings whose individual humanity was subsumed into something larger than themselves. Are you saying we've lost something? Heian asked. I'm saying you've gained something, the Eternal replied. You've gained the ability to think and care about the welfare of 1 trillion beings across 1,000 worlds. You've evolved beyond your species into something new. Galactic guardians, shepherds of civilization itself, and the price. The price is that you can never go home again. Earth is too small for you now. Humanity as it was is too limited for what you've become. As the meeting ended, the human leaders stood in silence, processing the weight of what they had accomplished and what they had sacrificed. They had set out to do business with the galaxy, and ended up becoming its evolutionary engine. They had arrived as Earth's representatives, and evolved into something beyond any single planet. Outside the chamber, the galaxy continued its work with ruthless efficiency. Alien children studied human business practices, alien governments implemented human administrative systems, alien cultures adapted human competitive values. The transformation was complete and irreversible. In the end, there had been no conquest in the traditional sense. There had been no war, no occupation, no forced submission. Instead, there had been something far more profound, a mutual evolution that had changed both predator and prey into something entirely new. The galaxy was no longer a collection of diverse but stagnant civilizations. It was a single, unified, aggressively expanding supercivilization that combined the best aspects of every species under human organizational principles, and at its heart stood beings who had once been human, now evolved into something that could manage and guide 1 trillion lives across the stars. The emissaries who had never come from Earth had been replaced by something far more dangerous and far more beneficial: evolution itself, wearing business suits and carrying briefcases. Full of change, the galaxy would never be the same. Neither would humanity. And perhaps that was exactly as it should be.